Welcome back, Ascenders, to the Ascended Thoughts Podcast. I'm your host, Mystic Rain. We are going to be talking about dreamweaving. I'm going to explain to you what it is, how you do it, and where you do it. And yes, I did say where. This is because once you have the awareness level and the consciousness level needed to grasp this concept, you will have the ability to completely change your life. So dream weaving is literally you weaving your dreams. Now, contrary to popular belief, not everybody is capable of dreaming. Not everybody has the ability to dream, and not everybody does dream. And when I say dream, I'm not talking about the thing that happens to you when you go to sleep at night. I'm not talking about that particular experience. I'm talking about the art, so to speak, of daydreaming, the art of visualization, of utilizing your imagination, the idea of having your head in the clouds, so to speak, that kind of dreaming, the ability to have some kind of ambition or some type of goal that fills you up with such a tremendous amount of desire. It feels like a dream. Not everybody has the ability to dream. And this is going to be shocking for a lot of people, but it's true. The ability to dream, to visualize, to imagine is actually part of a higher level of consciousness. So when we see people sometimes we come across people in life that seem like they have zero ambition, that they don't want anything better for themselves. And sometimes some of you may have had the experience of maybe talking to these people, trying to work things out with these people, and it just seems like no matter what you say, you can't get through to them. Or they will complain or kind of throw themselves this pity party, and they'll say, well, I don't have any goals because nothing will work for me. I'm just kind of at the mercy of life. Yes, this person may be a little bit negative, partially because they're resonating at a lower frequency, but their consciousness level hasn't caught up yet. And so some of these people actually do genuinely lack the ability to dream. So when you're dreaming, and then that is that imagination, that visualization. It is the ability to have your head in the clouds, but then transmute that energy into something material and tangible, and to change your current reality or the current state of things. And when you do that with intention, you have started to weave a dream. It is actually incredibly important to dream. It's incredibly important to fantasize, because when you do that, you are really just visualizing, and all of those things will manifest in your life. What I'm going to teach you how to do is to make it productive, and I'm going to teach you how to do it efficiently. So, because some of you are going to say to me, well, Mystic Rain, I do this all the time, and I feel like my life isn't changing and nothing isn't moving, or it's not moving as fast as I wanted to move. And the thing is, you're probably right. And the reason for this is because most likely you are dreaming or dream weaving without intention, because lack of knowledge and maybe just not knowing how to do it, or not being aware that you were kind of starting to do it in the first place. And then also you're not weaving in the right dimension. And I will say that again, Ascenders, you're not weaving in the right dimension. So the first thing we have to do is to get you to realize that it's time for you to dream with intention. When you dream, or fantasize, or imagine, or daydream with intention, that is the beginning of the weaving process. When you get into that state, you are now daydreaming with intent on making sure that what you are creating with your visualizations will come to pass. So when you dream, let's say you're dreaming of making it really big in your career. Let me just give you an example. So a working example, so you know what this looks like when you put this into practice. Let's say you want to get a promotion, you want to make it to the height of your career. When you start that daydreaming process, you need to start visualizing what that scene looks like when you get promoted. Visualize what that office looks like. Is it in a corner? Visualize where you work out of. Is it in an office building? What city is it in? Does that mean you have to move? Are you working from home? Are you creating your own schedule? Are you waking up with an alarm clock, or are you waking up without an alarm clock? Is it even in this country? What profession is it? Start to map out the details that you actually want to put in this dream. When you do that, that is the art of weaving, and that is you dreaming with intention. So I will do a little practice for you, and this should just kind of get the idea going, right? So when you sit down and you're in that quiet space and you start to dream, you start thinking to yourself, I really want this promotion and I want to be making six figures. And that promotion fills me with such joy, such pride, such happiness. And oh, I got a phone call from my boss, and they told me that as a result that I'll have to be relocated. And oh my God, I'm being relocated to the one city that I have always fantasized about living in. And then I get there after being relocated, and wow, look how beautiful this city is. Look how beautiful the houses are and the apartments are. And this is the house that I want to get with all of this money that I'm making in a job that makes me so unbelievably happy and so unbelievably fulfilled. Think about, I want to feel valued and I want to feel appreciated, and I am. And oh, look at that. They gave me that corner office and I've got all the best technology, and look at my desk. I have it organized just the way I want, and all of my colleagues are so nice to me. And on Fridays, I get to leave early and the benefits are great, and I'm happy and I'm smiling, and I'm meeting more friends in my job, and maybe I met a significant other in my job, and I'm just so overwhelmed and happy. And oh my God, my boss told me that they need me to travel. They need me to travel to London. Oh my God, like London is a place that I've always wanted to go, that I've always wanted to visit, and I cannot believe that I've just got this opportunity from my job, and I'm now going to London. So what you see that I just did there is weave that dream. I've just weaved my career dream. It's a level of really intentional, intense visualization about what it is that I want to happen. So when you start to dreamweave, that is you fantasizing. That is you, what society likes to call daydreaming, actually. But doing it with a purpose for where it is that you actually want to be. That is the actual art of daydreaming, or dream weaving, excuse me. And when you get into the practice and the habit of weaving all of the time, what you are doing is weaving your reality, because the life that we live is simply our perception of our reality. So when you start the process of dream weaving, what you have just effectively done is changed your life narrative. You said, my life is this, but I want it to be this. And you've changed the narrative, which means you have changed your course of possibilities and probabilities. You have completely veered and created a brand new path of being in order to bring into manifestation, so to speak. And so if you get in the practice of allowing yourself to do that every day or every other day, just for a few minutes, then you start mastering the art of weaving your dreams. It becomes easier. It's like exercising or going to the gym. It's a muscle memory. It becomes easier every time for you to visualize. If you feel that weaving a story like that off the top of your head is too hard to begin with, that is okay, because it is for some people. Take a step back and then just journal. Jot down all the things that you want to experience and all the positive things that those things will make you feel, or all the positive vibrations or frequencies that those things will bring into your life. And you putting it on paper is you storytelling. You're creating a story. And when you create a new story, you have once again effectively changed your narrative, which changes your outcome and it changes your field of probabilities and possibilities. And that is what you actually want to happen. So earlier I said, I'm going to tell you where to do that. You want to weave in the dream realm or the dream dimensions. Okay, so what do I mean by that? There are many dimensions. Where we are right now on our physical plane is actually in the third dimension. You may have heard that as being the third density. It is also fondly known as the matrix. We are in the third dimension. There is one dimension, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's in theory, there's an infinite amount of dimensions. We are currently in a third dimension. Okay? And then when we hear people talk about things like angels, ascended masters, extraterrestrial beings, we are usually talking about fifth dimension and higher. What we are going to do is dreamweave in the dream realm, the dream dimension, or the fourth dimension. So what is the fourth dimension? Science explains the fourth dimension as time. The fourth dimension is actually an overlay. It is an overlay of the third dimension, a bridge, if you will, between the third and the fifth dimensions. It is this really weird dream realm. That is why when you go to sleep, there are some of you that have incredibly vivid dreams that almost feel as if they're 3D. They feel palpable, like they're happening to you in very real time. You can see, you can hear, you can touch, you can smell, you can sense, because what has happened is that you have come out of the third dimension, you phased out and you phased in to the fourth dimension. This is also where astral projection and astral realms are or takes place. So if you have heard about the astral, what you're hearing about is usually the fourth dimension, the dream dimension, or the overlay. It is the overlay dimension. Now, fun fact, and this would be a completely different episode, is this is where all the sort of mythical creatures actually are. So dragons, gnomes, fairies, they are all actually in the fourth dimension or the overlay. Now, the fourth dimension, for anyone that's curious, is actually physical. That's why when some of you dream, it feels so real. It feels palpable. It feels physical because it is. That is the fourth dimension. You have phased out of the third and into the fourth. And when you wake up, you phase back into the third. And I suspect that if you're listening to the podcast, you, Ascender, are one of the ones that have a tendency to phase in and out of the fourth dimension, which, fun fact, makes you an interdimensional being. Now, why do we dreamweave in the fourth dimension? Well, simply put, it is easier in the fourth dimension. Now, Mr. Crane, how do I get to the fourth dimension? You don't have to worry about getting there because you go there every night. So, you will dreamweave, and I will say this again. This is when you will dreamweave. You will dreamweave in that space between sleep and awakeness. So in the morning, when you're starting to wake up, that phase, that crossover period where you're really groggy, where you're still laying in bed and your eyes are still closed and you're just starting to become aware, your consciousness is just starting to return, that middle bridge period is where you dream. It's that period where you usually lay there and you start mapping out your day. Your eyes have not opened yet. You haven't yet gotten up to use the restroom. But it's that weird period, the overlay period, where you start plotting your day. You think to yourself while your eyes close, okay, here we go, another day. All right, I got to get up. I got to pee. All right. What do I got to do today? Oh, I got to remember to answer those emails. That's that weird overlay period. It's when you can fall asleep in a blink of an eye if you wanted to. It's that weird, dangerous period that if you don't get up, you will fall back to sleep and you will miss work. That is the overlay, because that is you transferring out of the fourth and phasing back into the third. When you are in that bridge in between sleep and wakeness, that is when you start to dream. That is when you start dreaming about what it is that you want. You can start simple. It can be something like, this day is going to be a good day. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to get a really amazing phone call that's going to fill me up with such joy. I'm going to have a beautiful breakfast. And that breakfast, I'm gonna enjoy how the food tastes on my taste buds, how it fills me with energy, how it gives me the life force and the essence that I need to go about my day. I'm gonna get to work. I'm gonna accomplish all these things. My colleagues and I are gonna get along fantastic. My boss is gonna give me the praise that I have been looking for. I'm gonna feel really, really good about myself. I'm going to leave. You can weave your day at that moment. You can weave, you can dream weave at that moment. Now, if you allow yourself, Ascender, to think bigger, dream weave your life. You can lay there with your eyes closed and literally say, I'm in the house of my dreams, the house that I've always pictured for myself. Oh my gosh, look at how beautiful those ceilings are in this yard. I finally have my beautiful big back yard. It has green, beautiful, luscious grass. I've got a swing set for my two beautiful young children. I've got that hunk over there, that sexy hunk that's on the grill. Look at his back. He doesn't have his shirt on. You can go as far as you actually want to go with this. So let's jump back to the fourth dimension, that dream dimension. And let me explain a little bit more about that so you understand why it's necessary to do it in that in-between state. So like I said earlier, the fourth dimension is kind of where it's a dimension, it is a physical dimension, number one. It's also a dimension where a lot of those mythical creatures and beings live. So like I was saying before, dragons, gnomes, fairies, they live in the fourth dimension, right? They are actually in the overlay. The fourth dimension is an overlay of the third dimension, a bridging of the third and the fifth dimensions. And in fact, if you allow yourself to expand your area of awareness, you will be able to see evidence of that right here in your own 3D world. So if you take dragons, for instance, right? Dragons are a protective force, a protective creature. And if you look at old ancient texts, the text will tell you and suggest that dragons once upon a time were physical, as in you could see them with your own eyes. They weren't always a mythical creature, and that they were tangible, so to speak. And if you look at nature around you, you can see evidence of this in a form of various reptiles. You can see it kind of in snakes. You can see it in lizards. You can see it in bearded dragons, Komodo dragons. You can see how there would also be a similar creature, much like that of a dragon. What ended up happening was that consciousness rose. And it was no longer compatible with the lower consciousness, the lower density of the third dimension, the dimension in which we currently reside. And so it rose, it ascended, so to speak, and now it's part of the fourth dimension, which is the overlay, which is why you can't see it, because it's sort of in this different in-between state in this phase. This overlay is less dense than the dimension that we are currently in. The fact that you go to the fourth dimension naturally when you are in your dreaming state, or you are lucid dreaming, or you are in that period of sleep and wakeness, that in-between period, that period that we experience as we're drifting off and as we're slowly waking up, that in-between state. This means that you are phasing in and out of the dimensions. It also means that you have access to the fourth dimension. If you have access to the fourth dimension, then that means you are interdimensional. This means that you have the ability to move your energy and your energetic field amongst different dimensions in the universe. In this particular case, we're going to be using it and moving it within the fourth dimension. Because it's less dense than the third dimension, it is easier to transmute energy here. So transmute the energy in the fourth dimension, and you will see it because it's an overlay. It exists just on top of the third, right? You will see it manifest in your third dimension. Also, energy moves faster here simply because it's easier to transmute. So if you dreamweave in the fourth, you will see it come to pass in the third. And I can promise you this. Like, I guarantee you that you will notice a shift in your life and you will find that it is easier to manifest. Now, you can manifest in the third dimension. I manifest in the third dimension all the time. I dreamweave in the third dimension all the time. However, I will say that it does take longer to manifest in the third dimension because energy is denser here. So it simply takes a little bit longer to move. Manifesting in the fourth dimension or dreamweaving in the fourth dimension is simply more efficient, if you will. It's a little bit more productive. And because you are an interdimensional being, because you have a tendency to phase out of the third and fourth dimensions, it only makes sense that you would use that to your advantage. So dreamweave in the fourth and watch it come to pass in the third. So that is dreamweaving. Now, a lot of you will not be able to do it immediately. Some of you will. Anyone that has a well-developed imaginary sense, anyone that finds it easy to visualize won't have an issue with this. But people that are on the other side of that spectrum, that are sort of stepping into this newness of themselves, and they are teaching themselves how to visualize. It is okay to start small. Please do not pressure yourself into getting there because it is a muscle memory. It's like exercising. You get better over time, and eventually the story you weave becomes a lot more elaborate, a lot more detailed, and to be frank with you, way better. And if you are someone that's coming out of a period of darkness, Ascender, you may find that it's a little bit harder to weave simply because you are, well, effectively unweaving all the things in your life that has occurred and that you no longer want to happen. And so you will experience an unlearning while you are currently learning this new thing, and that is okay, and that is expected. You have to understand that energy is always in movement. It is always flowing. And thoughts are the transmutation of energy. That's it. It's the flow of energy. So when you are intentional with your thoughts, then you create this thing called visualizations. And that is what the 3D world likes to call the vivid imagination. But these things are actually very good. Now, if you pump more intention to an intentional thought, you begin to weave a story. And when you begin to weave a story, you are weaving your own story. And if you are an interdimensional being that has a tendency to phase between a third and the fourth dimensions, as you do when you're in between states, in between that sleep state and in between that waking state, then you can dream and weave your story in a less dense density, a less dense dimension, a dimension where energy moves more freely, a dimension where energy has a tendency to be a lot more aligned. It only makes sense that you would weave it there, right? So it can pass here. It makes no sense to weave here when we know that the energy here is a lot denser and a lot heavier. It's counterproductive once you have the knowledge to know that you, Ascender, can do that somewhere else. So your homework for this week, Ascender, is to practice the art of dream weaving. Do it when you're in between states, in between the sleep and the waking states. It is easier at this time because you don't have any inhibitions. And allow your imagination to flow freely, positively, and allow yourself to write the story of what you want for your life. And watch it over the course of years come to pass. I promise you. Stay inspired and keep ascending.